I got really into light tackle fishing at a very young age. At the age of 8, I started fly fishing, and between the years of 8 to 15 were probably my most memorable fishing years because it was a giant learning curve. I learned how to become a good spin fisherman with artificial. I learned how to use a bait caster, and all along the way I was fly fishing. I realized very quickly that whenever I would take friends, I had to entertain them. They weren't as into the learning aspect of fishing like I was. So a lot of my days in my early fishing career were spent solo. I didn't have to entertain anybody. I could go learn where the fish lived, and I could try all different kinds of techniques to learn how to catch them. And every once in a while, I do these solo days still today. Though I've been a professional guide for 37 years, it's fun to go out there and kind of start where the grassroots began my fishing career and have a solo day on the water. One of the species of fish I've always been enamored with is tarpon. Tarpon of all sizes, little, big. I can remember it like yesterday, the first time I hooked a little tarpon in Florida Bay around an island and saw that fish jump and was backlit in the sun. It just hooked me, and I was ruined from that point forward. I was probably 8, 9 years old when that happened. And I've spent a lifetime of pursuit of tarpon. I'm kind of based my whole guiding career around being a guy that you go catch tarpon with. So though I love to fish for everything, I love sailfish, marlin, snook, redfish, permit, bonefish, I like them all. If my last day was to be here tomorrow, I had one last fish to catch, it would definitely be a tarpon. So having said that, when I do have the occasion to go on a solo day and get the opportunity to chase tarpon, that's what we're gonna do. There he is. Yeah, I was beginning to think they weren't biting. That's so much fun. These fish this time of year, it's late summer. They get in these brackish water bays. We're fishing the edge of a creek here. We have so much rain throughout the summer. These lakes back here, there he goes. They fill up with fresh water. And these creeks drain that fresh water out of those lakes into the salt. And you get this briny water. It's kind of half and half salt, half fresh. And these brine shrimp get in these bays. And early in the morning, as the sun just starts coming up, there's a pH thing that happens because the top of the water starts getting warmer. The underneath is cooler, and these shrimp come up to the surface. And these tarpon just have a frenzy on these little shrimp that are popping on top. I've seen a lot of fish this morning, just had a hard time getting them to bite. Or maybe I just wasn't doing it right, I don't know. Let's try and catch another one. There's nothing like poling a skiff and hunting a fish. And I think that's one of the things I love most about what I do. You're on a hunt before you make a cast. You have an established idea of what you're looking for. You have the right bait or fly on your outfit. We're trying to emulate a small bait fish or a shrimp. Poling along in search of fish before you even make a cast or see one, it to me is as big a part of sight fishing, and it's what intrigues me about sight fishing as much as actually, presenting a bait to a target or anything else. It's half the game. You don't make a cast till you see one, so first you got to find one. And I've always loved the hunt and the poling aspect of being quiet and being stealthy. You can't just go pushing this boat around as fast as you can and cover ground, because any fish you encounter in that mode, you're going to spook them. So the slower you can go in the boat, because the boat does have displacement, there's an invisible ring around the boat of displacement that the fish feel. So the slower you can go, the more stealthy you can pull the boat, the closer you'll get to fish without them being aware of your presence. And I think that's one of the coolest aspects of this whole game. These damn fish are awesome. And he's off. That's okay. I'm good with that. Got the best part of that one. I mean, little tarpon do everything you want a fish to do. They run, they jump, they don't always bite real good, so they're tricky sometimes. So it's a challenge. One aspect that a tarpon offers an angler versus other species of fish is they are unequivocally the hardest fish to hook. Or I should say, they're the hardest fish to keep hooked. And smaller tarpon are actually harder to hook than big ones, because they give way. When you set the hook on a little tarpon, his first instinct is to hit the air, shaking his head as violently as he can to try and get that lure out of his mouth. And because they give way, you don't always make great purchase with the hook. And some of these jumps are amazing. They hit the air, they're doing cartwheels, they're backlit, the sun's gleaming off their scales, there's water flying everywhere. They're just a badass fish. So if they get away, and it's not a tournament scenario where it really counts for something, I don't care. You got the best out of that fish. Come on, buddy. And he's off. That's pretty badass right there. Fish was crazy. Pulled a crazy Ivan on me. Under the boat between the pole. Good for him. There we go. A little better fish there. And he's off. That hook is a little bit dull. That's one thing about tarpon as well, is they will, because when you hit that bony mouth, it'll just curl the tip of the hook a little bit sometimes. You always got to check it. Always sharpen a hook going towards the point. You know, if you go with the point, it'll get sharp, but it'll get thin, and it'll curl when it hits the bony mouth of a tarpon. So always go towards the point at an angle on one side and exactly the same angle on the other side, and it kind of makes a blade like this and like that. There we go. That was badass. Come on, buddy, settle down. Just want to shake hands with you. Man, these are healthy little fish. They're really fat, chunky, been eating well. One cool thing about a jig is it rides with the hook up. So one, it doesn't grab the weeds and so forth, but it hooks them in what we call the button. This is a little soft, tarpon's mouths are very, very hard. It's hard to hook them. There he goes. But because that jig rides with the hook up, when that fish eats, it tends to want to hook them, you know, in that upper lip, in the button we call it. It's a good spot. The key, I mean, these fish are in some brown water, so I can't see them, you know, inside the water, underneath the surface, and they come up and gulp air, especially in places that you know there isn't a lot of oxygen in the water like this. It's pretty quiet. There's not a lot of current. The key to getting a bite is you don't just randomly throw where they're rolling. You see the direction they're going and the speed in which they roll, and that kind of gives you a mind's eye view of where they're going to be, and that's where you throw the lure or the fly or the jig or whatever you're fishing with. If they're going left and they're going kind of slow, you don't lead them that much. You throw a little past them to the left, you know, lead them 3 or 4 feet. If they roll fast and hard, you might lead them 10 feet. Sometimes they roll and I didn't see it. I heard it and I see the rings, and I just make a guess. I've gotten very few bites that way. But watching a fish roll, when I see it, which way he's going, then I know the speed in which he's traveling. Every time I've made that line up right, I've gotten a bite. So it's just, those little things can make a difference of having success or not.
on, buddy. Relax. Little Everglades fish. So my jig, all the hair was getting worn off. So I just cut a paddle tail in half and put the tail on my jig just to give it a little bit more silhouette. He seemed to like it all right.
If you haven't already, go to my website, theseahuntertv.com. You can watch past episodes, shop apparel, book a fishing charter with the Seahunter Fishing Group, and watch some behind the scenes.
One of the aspects of fishing that I've always enjoyed, whether it was a guiding situation or getting ready for a tournament or an angler, a special angler that's coming to fish with me, is the preparation. To me, the preparation is like the anticipation for the excitement that's about to begin. Before every fishing trip, usually the night before, I'm preparing for the next day. I have in my mind's eye what the day may hold, but at the same time, you want to be prepared for everything because you never know what God's going to give you that day. So having a jig on a spinning rod ready, having a popper on a fly, having a fly that sinks on another fly rod, having all these things put together before you leave the dock, I'm visualizing in my mind's eye what situation this might offer me, once I get out there and start fishing for these fish.
Whoa. Jump in the boat. Well, that was pretty damn crazy. Man, there were so many baits in here. They're popping all these tiny little bait fish. And you throw over there and there's just too many baits to compete with. Finally, I just saw one roll, not in a feeding situation, and threw it in front of him and he ate it. Hell yeah. You know what? I get to fish a lot of days with a lot of good clients and friends and so forth. But there's just something about not having to entertain anybody, being out here by myself and just enjoying this. I mean, I don't need somebody to have fun. That was as fun as it gets right there without there being anybody here to share it with. It doesn't matter. It's just me and them right now.
Along with tarpon in these bays, you'll also find snook and redfish. They inhabit the same waters, they feed on the same bait fish and shrimp. And often when you find these tarpon in a feeding frenzy on these shrimp and the small baits that are inhabiting these little bays, you'll also encounter snook and redfish. So though I'm actually targeting tarpon, occasionally you get a shot at a snook or a redfish. There's nothing wrong with catching one of those.
was pretty chaotic. It was fun as though.
Overall, I think this has been a really, really great day for me. It's not about catching a bunch of fish, which I did manage to catch a bunch of fish today, but that's not what it was about. It was kind of like going out here, being with nature, not having to entertain anybody, kind of giving my brain a reboot and going back to all the memories of when I started the fishing game. That's why I like these solo days. That's why I do them regularly, throughout the year. And there'll be more to come, but this was a special one because I was chasing my favorite fish, the tarpon.